Hi, I'm Lanny, and this is Preserving Today. Okay, today I need to deal with this. Out in my garden here, you can see these beautiful tomato plants loaded with tomatoes. So what's the problem? Well, it's October in Northwest Washington. These tomatoes have no chance of ripening. So I have a ton of green tomatoes. So rather than crying or leaving these out to rot over the winter, I'm going to pick all these green tomatoes and bring them inside and find different ways to use them. Things I've done in the past would be just throw these all in a paper bag or cardboard box and let them sit, and they'll eventually ripen on their own. But there are other ways to use green tomatoes, and there are a lot of good ways to preserve green tomatoes as well. So I have a few different kinds of green tomatoes. Any of these are going to be good for making salsa or pickling, which is what I want to do today. I'm going to show you how I set up these green tomato pickles to ferment and how I can tell when they're done fermenting and ready to eat or moved to the refrigerator. Green tomato pickles are easy to make. You can do that with vinegar, but why not use the magic of fermentation to preserve your green tomatoes for a year or more in your refrigerator? So stick around for the whole video to see how I set this up and what it looks like through the process of fermentation. So what I need is green tomatoes, a quart-sized canning jar, salt, spices, garlic, and water. I'm going to start by peeling my garlic. This is from actually last year's garlic harvest and it's starting to sprout, but I don't care, it's going to be just fine. So all I want to do when using this old garlic is take the sprout out. Those can be kind of bitter. Okay, so I gently crushed this garlic and split it in half, and now I'm just going to toss it into my canning jar. And then I'm going to choose my spices. So I have a lot of good choices. I think today I'm going to use mustard seed, coriander, and black peppercorn. These are brown and yellow mustard seeds. Not many black peppercorns, and then about a tablespoon each of the mustard seeds and the coriander. Now we prepare the tomatoes, and all I want to do is cut them to the size I want pickles. So you can do just cut them in half, cut them in quarters, or you could even leave them whole. They'll take a little longer to ferment but when they're whole, but it's a fun way to do it as well. If you're doing cherry tomatoes, I recommend just leaving them whole. But I'm going to cut these into quarters and just drop them into the jar. Okay, and I just want to make sure that I leave enough headspace in the jar that I can put a weight in, because we need to find some way to keep these tomatoes submerged under the brine, because mold cannot grow without oxygen. Therefore, mold cannot grow underneath the liquid that we're going to put in this jar. So if we can keep all the tomatoes submerged underneath, then we will avoid mold on our ferment. After this is done, I've got a couple inches of headspace on the top. I have 4 cups of water here, which is probably more than I need. I'm going to do a tablespoon of salt to this 4 cups of water. Stir that to dissolve the salt. Doesn't have to be completely dissolved. You don't have to warm your water. Do try and use water that is free of chlorine or fluoride, because those can inhibit the bacterial growth that we're wanting to promote with fermentation. And some people do brine very specifically by weight, and I think that's great if you're into that. But I like to do my fermentation on the fly, and I just taste my brine to make sure it tastes salty enough. You want it to taste a little more salty than you would want a pickle brine, because of the liquid from the tomatoes are going to be extracted and also going to dilute this further. Now we just cover the tomatoes with the brine. And I'm going to use this glass weight. It has a cute little handle on it. These are handy. The other thing you can use is a lid and spring set. Ball makes one, and there's also another company that makes one. I'll link to those in the description. Something to hold these tomatoes below the brine. This glass weight is going to do a great job, and the glass weight fits with any wide mouth mason jar, as does the lid and spring set. And I'm going to use the lid from the lid and spring set. It has these holes in the top with a silicone gasket that's going to let air escape from the jar and not allow any fruit flies or dust to get in. The reason we want to allow gases to escape is because part of the process of fermentation is to create CO2. So if you have it in a really tight fitting jar, eventually it could explode or overflow with fizz. Now all I need to do is put this on a shelf, hopefully out of direct sunlight, and let it ferment for at least 8 days. I'm gonna taste it after 8 days, but I might wanna go several weeks for these, so we're gonna just check back. I'll show you the progress and how things develop as it goes. And if you find this video helpful, please hit the like button, and of course, subscribe to Preserving Today for more fermentation and food preservation videos. Okay, here we are 9 days after I started this ferment, and the first thing you might notice is a change in the color of the tomatoes, as well as the cloudiness of the brine. And we should see, yep, there we go, bubbles. If I tilt this, see all those bubbles escaping from the bottom and coming up. After the first few days there were more carbonation than this, but it's kind of settled down a little bit. So if I remove the weight, nice and bubbly. It smells sour, it smells like pickles. And see how these look? They look like pickles, they look like cucumber pickles. Oh yeah, these are good. They're still crunchy, but boy do they taste like cucumber pickles. That's amazing. Yeah, I would call these done after just 9 days. I don't think I need to go any longer. I mean, you could if you wanted to, or you didn't have room in your refrigerator, but this is plenty of time. And to put these away, all I need to do is take the weight out and replace the vented lid with a normal lid, and I can put them to the refrigerator and start using them right away. That's it. This is how I made fermented green tomato pickles. Have you ever made this recipe before? Let me know in the comments. I'm Lanny, and this was Preserving Today.